Mate, thank you so much for coming to the show.
All good, man.
This conversation could really go for multiple hours, so I'm going to try and move very swiftly through. You're up to so many interesting things all the time. Every time I see you on the socials, you're always doing something cool. For the guys who don't currently follow you in the socials, Jesse Hunter, who is he? What does he do?
Mate, Brisbane-based entrepreneur. My core business is dreamdealer.com.au. We're a finance company, lean much heavier into the street culture, pop culture, podcasts, sport, these sort of things, just as a way to break through the current climate of what you would expect a finance broker to be. I'm very big in being the complete opposite.
You 1,000% are the complete opposite when I think of a finance broker, but in the coolest ways, man. Like, your brand is such a cool brand. I'm going to get into like some of the details that I see within the brand, but to start things off, like Dream Dealer, how old is it, and the approach to it? Where did this all start?
Yeah, so the company itself is only a couple of years old. We started as a business called Luna Finance, which was just a name that I had. My middle daughter's name is Luna. I needed a business name. Luna looked cool as a logo, so I was like, let's roll with that. At the beginning, we tried to sort of fall in line with how things were done and how things were perceived online and advertising and marketing. And very quickly, I realized that I hated it. I didn't enjoy it whatsoever. The Dream Dealer brand just came on the back of getting some advice from some other entrepreneurs. I got in touch with some really, really high level designers in the streetwear space. Mm-hmm. They'd worked with like the biggest brands in the world, NFL, the NBA, mm-hmm. everything like this. We had a very, lengthy 3 weeks of conversations, meetings like this, diving into my history, what I liked, what I didn't like, these sort of things. And on the back of that, the Dream Dealer brand was born. So it's one of those brands that it is me. Like, and that's why when you see the Dream Dealer content, it's just the shit that I want to do.
Such a good move. So up front, I realized that really, really quickly. Like, I know the first time me and you actually like interacted for more than 30 seconds, I stopped you and just sort of like, hey, you're not really like a finance guy, but you are a finance guy, but you have a real unique approach to it. When the guys were sort of flushing out that identity to create this brand, how did all that look? What was that?
It initially started as me literally on Canva putting together, the equivalent of like a vision board, but a brand board. So literally copying, pasting, and putting pictures of Nate Diaz, putting pictures of Monster Energy, putting pictures of Las Vegas,
right,
and all of these sort of things that I thought resonated with me the most. And also, personally doing research on brands that were sort of really cutting through in old niches. And that the biggest brand that I probably pulled apart was Liquid Death, and the impact and how they've gone from being, Liquid Death and all the crazy marketing that they do, but ultimately they're a water company. They only sell water. They just do it in a really cool, unique way. It's not about the water. It's about sort of the experience and all of that sort of thing, but the product is also really good. And that's how initially it started. And from there, we've tried various different types of content. We've done the short form, overhooked stuff. But finance is just such a boring topic. It just, even if you do a video that goes very well, for example, if it's a polarizing opinion in finance, it's like, okay, does this have any real impact to bottom line of funnel? And are we going to convert a lead off this? And how with e-commerce, it's like views. Sure, you can have a call to action and you can get somewhere. With finance, there's so much trust and things like that you've got to develop over time, and then you can close the lead. And that's where our content went from, okay, the finance businesses out there in our competition are, sure, they're worried about tech and automating and implementing these sort of things to speed up the process. But it's like, how do we make Dream Dealer real? And that was like real world events and filming ourselves in real world events that our customers would like to be at, these sort of things. And on the back of that, it really developed into my interests being Dream Dealer's interests, and the demographic that we target are the people that I'd get along very well with, as far as we could talk about footy, we could talk about boxing, we could talk about UFC, these sort of things. And that was a big turning point from going from, okay, to me and like the personal brand stuff, and really trying to be the person that would get the views on Instagram and the super consistent uploads and stuff like that. Whereas it was like, no, what is Dream Dealer? And it's like, no, it's me that wanted the life that I'm lucky enough to get to live now. That was my dream. And we use finance as a vehicle to help others get their dream. So if that's sponsoring a fighter, if that's sponsoring a footy team, if that's given money or time or whatever it is, we use the money that we make from doing deals to then go back into make people accomplish their dreams, not necessarily just, hey, get your dream car. It's like, no, we want to back you to have a crack. What do you want to have a crack doing? And then we monetize it by, sure, financing the assets, but most importantly, we enable them to believe in themselves is the big thing.
They say that your ideal customer is likely you 5 years ago. And like some of the terminology that you use and just your understanding of like the end-to-end service was the thing that threw me when we first met. So like I knew when I was talking to you, you have like a really good grasp of marketing, branding, monetizing is a great word for that. Taking an idea and figuring out where that transaction is going to take place in the market. So yeah, to hold that 5-year thought there, what was Jesse 5 years ago? Have you always been in finance?
No.
Okay.
So I've been in finance for as long as the company's been registered, essentially.
Right.
So I was in construction management. Yeah, I've got my Cert 4 in building. I was working for a volume builder. That was where I sort of really found the knack for marketing and advertising. I fell into that sort of that space with the builder, and really using things like house and land packages, but like really developing like what makes someone click on that ad and what makes someone put in their details and things like that. And I developed this system which was like, let's look at the 8 most recent sales in a particular suburb and let's figure out the floor plan of that house. And then let's then go to the architects and say, hey, we need to design these sort of homes. They need to look like this because that's what's selling. And then we'd figure out a way to price the builds 10% under what the recent sales had sold for. And the company went from 100 leads to 1,000 leads a month, that sort of stuff. Then when COVID came, I was sitting on the side of the fence that was making decisions around people's future and hey, are we going to have to stand this staff member down, that staff member down? And I hated it. I realized at that point that security in jobs was somewhat of a myth. Sure, you've got a level of protection, but ultimately, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. You feel secure because you think you're going to be paid next week, but you don't know how much money that business has got in the bank to actually, keep you secure at the end of the day. So at the time, my wife was in childcare and she was stood down as a casual worker. I had the 2 kids, and I was like, man, there's more to life. I've got the skill. I always wanted to run my own business, and at the time, it was probably going to be in building, but I financed the car at the time. I looked at the compliance documents. I saw what they'd earned. I was like, this is obscene, because I basically did it for myself. They just entered the data. And from there, I went and did a 2-month traineeship in finance. And the 3rd month, I registered the ABN and off we went.
That's so brilliant.
It's a cool story. It's really cool to look back on, but I'm kind of past that now. Like, I think that like it is cool to look back and go, you know what, that was pretty cool that I did that, but I was always gearing up to do that. I was just thinking today, like, even when I was 12, 13 years old, I sort of envisioned myself being in this position anyway. Like it was just the right time and I got pushed to do it. But ultimately, I believed in myself. My wife was on board 100%. And she had that unwavering support and belief that I'd pull it off. There were times there that I almost didn't, no money, nothing, using ZipPay to buy Coles vouchers to feed our kids. So I had a lot of motivations to get out there and do my job and, grinded like a lot of people would in the first bit of their business until I had enough money to really refine who the brand was and where we wanted to be in a few years' time.
I'm going to stay on that brand because we're going to do this again as well. I've got so much to unpack. That unwavering, like, I suppose that's the key decision, man. Once you go into your career with just you, and you 1,000% back yourself. But then once you've got those dependents, when you've got those other people around you, man, it's a different game.
Yeah. Well, my wife fell pregnant with the third a month after I'd quit my job. So it was like, and I'd sold her car to start the business. So we didn't actually have a car to transport the 3 kids. So I had, let's say, 8 months to make the money to buy my wife a car so she could, when she was still in childcare at that point, and she was walking to the childcare center with the kids because we didn't have a car. We just didn't have a car for her. I had the car to drive to my traineeship. And yeah, now she's got the car she wants, and she works. She's a fully fledged finance broker herself now. So I got her to the level, and she's a gun. Like, she's so good.
So looking at the show notes, I was going to touch on that. There's always these, like, there's these times, man, and I almost want to go back before the construction, because this entrepreneurial thing that you have, like, where did that start?
My mum, man, like, she has always been like that. Like, when I was 14, 15, she started a company called Movie Mate, and it was like Tinder. So you'd find a person to go to the movies with. She'd advertise in the back of the paper, and you'd call the number. My mum would sit there and link you with that person to go and watch a movie with. And she was trying to cut deals with Coffee Club, all these different, faster pasta at Stafford. Like, that's where it came from. And that never become anything. But at that time, at like 14, 15, I was trying to figure, because I wanted my mum to have all this money so I could have a sick life.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I got to figure out a way to help here. So at like 14, I was looking into Google AdWords and how to monetize things. Like,
Right.
where's the money made in these sort of businesses? And at like 14, I was starting to figure that, hey, the money's not necessarily in the final outcome, which is to go to the movie. It's off sort of what you can add value and deliver to
Those adjoining services.
everything else. And that's where you make the money. But, I didn't really have a job till I was 24.
Yeah.
I was just chilling, learning, talking my way out of shitty situations, and eventually, met my wife. And when I met my wife, I started as a labourer and worked my way through the construction industry until I got to where I was pretty stagnant, and then bang, let's go again.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So the 2 to 3, like, usually you have these 2 to 3 moments along the way that you just being as being like the most proud moments of the journey. So give me those 2 to 3. Like, what are the moments so far that really stick out to you?
Man, the collective moment of like being like so present with my kids is like something that I've only really come to appreciate the last few months, just how present I can be. Like, just having that option being one. 2, obviously, my car, it is just a car, but it is something that, I first saw the car that I own now, the model at the time, when I was mixing buckets of render on a job site, and one drove down, and I was like, one day. So, and I'd always set the goal that the car's an M3, and it's just an M3, but I wanted an M3 before I turned 33 on the 3rd of August. That was my goal. And I pulled it off by 4 weeks. So I got it in July of last year. And so that was one. And then the third being the ability to like help my mum more than anything. She that business didn't work, and she went on to essentially become she was a cleaner. She's since founded a domestic violence charity, which has gone really well, and she's the founding director of that, and she stepped back, but recently selling her house and going through all that. So having the ability to give my mum money to sort of not have to worry about, too many things. So if it's just like, hey, I need $2,000 to move to move house, so I can give her that without, it being too much of a big deal, and those sort of things. So growing up, I never had a security blanket. Never once did I have someone to fall back on. So it's good now to be that person that my family can fall back on. And for the first time, like, from if you want to say legacy point of view, or I feel like my last name's finally got a security blanket, and now it's not necessarily about making more money, but just making sure that that's the case for the rest of my life.
Sick. Yeah, the approach, man. Sick. Vision, you keep mentioning, like, so are you a big vision, like a manifestation type person? Like, do you really sort of sit there and spend the time to bring these ideas to life, or you see them sort of years out and it's like, right, let's start shooting in that direction? Explain that to me.
Kind of. I don't know. I think I'm just very good at identifying opportunity and then executing really fast too. Like I think that's the main thing. Is like I don't sweat the small stuff too much. I'll if there's a risk to take, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to take the risk. And I've always been like that. I've always been in growing up really shitty situations that I've ended up in. But you know, as I learned the resilience of like, you know, and adapting to certain situations and scenarios, it just become second nature to go, you know what, I can be in any situation and come out, you know, with something positive. So I never really manifested or sat down and thought, nah, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to get there. I always just thought about the end goal, you know, and then nothing would get in the way from there. And, you know, as I'm getting older and more mature in business, I'm starting to like really, instead of manifest the future, is probably more reflect on things, suppose, like, so the opposite end of the scale. It's just much better mental health wise, I think, is looking present and where you're at and everything you've got and those sort of things is much more, it makes me much happier than thinking about, if I just push harder, I'll get here in a few years' time. So it's like I said, the ability to be so present with my kids. They're only, you know, 7, 5, and 3, and it's you know, so many people go through this stage of life, and your kids are in after school care, and you're working 9 to 5, and you're seeing them half an hour a day. It's like I drop my daughter at school, I pick her up in the afternoon, I work in between, and it works.
Yeah, it's brilliant. With the risks, so obviously you think about how big a risk are you going to take here? What is the return on that? And what does that look like for you in the immediate and then long term? Obviously, with risk, a ton of shit falls apart.
Yeah.
So over the time, like things are falling apart. What are some of those breakdowns? Tell me about stuff that hasn't worked. Like it obviously hasn't all been straightforward.
Man, business deals, you know, so many things where it's like you at the time was like incredible, but they ended up being, you know, some of the worst decisions. Like the decisions that was just no brainers are the ones where I found that have become, you know, some of the more challenging situations or you know, certain relationships that I've had and gotten through and all of that sort of thing. And also the shiny light of okay, like the entrepreneur space is it was difficult to manage. I'd gone from making no money to making my year's salary in 4 weeks. And that was a huge learning curve, just to the ego, to the way you treated people and learning that hey, money isn't anything outside of the ones and zeros in your bank. It can make your life comfortable, but the way that it was changing me to how I'd treat people and how I'd think about myself around other people and putting myself on a pedestal. You know, there's been a couple of times now where I've had, you could say, breakdowns, and a lot of that's just from, you know, I think your ego getting to a point and then it conflicting with like my core values and letting the people around me dictate how I treated others and things like that. They're probably been some of the biggest low points of business, and mainly, you know, learning how to get through that side of things and learning how to keep yourself in check with your core values. And you know, it wasn't until sort of 12, 18 months where I'd established those sort of core values and how I wanted to act. And since I've kind of let them dictate my next move, I've been much happier. There's been times on the money side of things where I've had no money, and it's like sitting there thinking, fuck, okay, I got to start looking at a job here. Or I got to start looking at raising money here. I got to start looking at this and that. And because I've made decisions where they haven't been the right ones, that could just be from going all in on something I shouldn't have gone all in on. Not having the skill to learn how to mitigate certain decisions. Like, okay, we can test the waters here, but we need to worry more about this. And as I became, I'm not an unknown entrepreneur, but as I got sort of more familiar with the space and other opportunities as well, taking every opportunity I could get and burning out because I had I was balancing too many things, or I was trying to start too many other businesses and not worrying about the business that got me here. So that's sort of one of the biggest things. Whereas now I have a sort of a 70-30, and I use AI to help me with that. So I make sure that 70% of my time is dedicated to the business that turns the wheels, and 30% of that is dedicated to the other opportunities that fall in my lap, because I still have the same thing that got me to start and jump from construction to finance is still there.
Yeah.
And there's times where it's like, oh, it'll feel like I'm jumping from finance to the next thing. And my dad even says like, oh, how long are you going to do this for? It's like,
Yeah. Once you figure out the systems,
exactly.
well, let's transit to the systems. So the systems and framework that you apply to any business. Talk to me about that.
It's always authenticity, shooting straight, never, I think that there's a saying, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. I think that everyone these days could sense a bullshitter. Social media trains you to see the smoke, the mirrors, the bullshit. There's a certain element of people that will still fall for it, but I never want to sell anything to them because it's unethical in my opinion. People that fall for the certain, gurus and the coaching and this and that, everything else. Not to say that there's not good ones out there, but 99% of them are people that have never done anything. But I always will try to cut a deal into a certain percentage. And if we just use 99% was the deal, I'll always, and there's three parties, I'll try to get the deal to level out 33, 33, 33. That's how I always try to do things. And that's how it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think when I always try to put myself in the other position of okay, a customer should I call this customer back? It's like, well, would I want to get the call back? Of course I would. It's bad news though. Well, I'd want to know that it's bad news. Yeah. Those sort of things, and speed to market as well is like the sense of urgency. I think that in every element and every business should have a sense of urgency that you should always be pushing for something. And I always, growing up, I was a very good apprentice or labourer because I was always a step ahead. And I try to apply that as well to business. It's like, I want to let Dylan know before he has to ask. Mm-hmm. So when I wake up and I got clients, I got, let's say 10 or 15 clients that we got deals in for at the moment on the cars. I don't want them to, because I know that I'd wake up and I'd be like, fuck, like, I can't wait to hear. Mm-hmm. So I get on the text straight away, voice memo, hey, just letting you know, I'm on it. And that two things, they get the update and my phone's not blowing up asking for updates later. So everyone wins. They get the 33, I get the 33, and the bank gets the 33 when the deal's done.
Yeah, I hear. Okay, so there's obviously going to be young guys out there that already follow you, and they're looking to get into your shoes. Maybe not now. They don't know where to start. They're at zero, because let's be honest, that's both where we started. Yeah. So they're at zero. What are the first steps that you would encourage anyone to take to just, I wouldn't say slipstream, but just get to the right actions to start moving things forward?
I think the biggest thing when you're young, I grew up being told, man, get a job. Like, what are you doing? You're being a bum. You're living under your mum's house. You're not doing anything. And I was always very resilient and not listening to that. And I was always like, I'm only going to take advice from people that are where I want to be. So I think it's learning, in a horse racing term, is get your blinkers on more than anything and silence the noise. And unfortunately, in this space, majority of the noise is going to come from those closest to you. So really get to a point where and what that does more than anything is it helps your self-belief. Like if you can really get to a point like, nah, fuck you. Like I'm going to show you, it's the cookie jar, the David Goggins. I'm going to put my hand in the cookie jar, every person that. So just start to build those like cookie jar moments of things that you can fall back on when shit gets hard, because it will get hard. And from there, it's execute. I've always had this thing since I started the business that I wanted to be known as the executioner. That's what I wanted to be known as, is like when I had an idea, it was like, bang, let's do it. And within days, I wanted that to be either making money or generating a lead or doing this or that. So is it executing things and back yourself, because these days with information and even more so with ChatGPT and AI now, you can go so deep in things and you don't have to. It's like I said, my second month of finance, I'd made $20,000. I didn't know how to read financials. I didn't know this, that. I barely knew what a credit score was, but all I did was look after the client, called the client when I needed to, and that's the sort of thing that is really important, particularly if you're going to go into this service-based style stuff. If you're a trade or you want to start a trade business, that just comes down to being the best that you can be. Like you want to, I don't know what sort of if you're an apprentice, you obviously want to finish your apprenticeship, and if you're a tradesman, you want to figure out ways to get even better again. And if it's take a step back to take 2 steps forward, if you want to build luxury homes but you've never done it before, you want to do renos, you've never done it before, it's like, what have I got to do for the next 18 months to get me in a position to then start my next business? And social media is a big thing in all this content space and all the personal branding space, but I think we're getting to a point now where, in my opinion, we're on the back of a trend there. I think that the consumer's overhooked 9 times out of 10. When a hook shows up, you kind of know. When I'm watching my wife scroll things or my mum scroll things, I'm taking note of like, okay, what are they stopping at? And with the world, with AI and what you can do with it, it's like, you just want to be real now. We're getting to a point where, sure, you want to be just consistently real. And you don't need, Dream Deal has 2,500 followers, let's roughly. And it is $1 million business. You don't need the massive numbers to really be successful. You just, like they say, 1,000 true fans. And I've got 2,500 customers that follow me on Instagram. And the lifetime of the deal there is the 2,500 people that are probably going to, because of the demographic that I've chosen, every 5 years, they're a customer. Every 5 years, they're a customer. They want to get with all the 18-year-old. Now he's 23, he wants to get married. There's a customer. Oh, now he needs his honeymoon. There's a customer. Now he needs a family car. There's a customer.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Mate, we're almost out for time. What is the cool stuff that you're working on from here? What are you doing?
Man, I've got so much on the go. The hat I'm wearing right now, that's probably the most exciting. I've started a business called Walters. Well, it's called Walters Brothers. It's with Billy Walters from the Broncos and Jack Walters, his brother, who they're both carpenters. I met Jack and I was like, that hat's sick. Now we've got the tech backstory, the best designers. We've done the hat. That's coming. That'll launch in the next few weeks. Obviously, doing heaps in the boxing, heaps in the media, sponsoring boxers, a little bit of agent stuff, and helping boxers to chase their dreams. And that's not just with my money; it's with other people's money as well. So that and probably the coolest thing I do is probably my dogs. I've got Carne Corsos, security dogs, and I spend hours a day training those things. So I'm trying to figure out how to monetize that as well. So that's a bit about me, mate.
That's what's coming. Mate, where do they find you?
Mate, at dreamdealer.com.au or dd_Jesse on Instagram. They're the only places you'll find me. I don't advertise. I'm not on Facebook.
I appreciate you, man.
Easy.